Hi everyone! In this online presentation, Kaylee, Victoria, and Stacy will be discussing the topic of library assessment as examined through the article entitled Developing an Academic Library Assessment Plan, a Case Study by Smith, Tryon, and Snyder. The two articles within the reading list for this week focused on altmetrics and methods for library assessment that may be applied to a broad array of academic libraries. As we will discuss, our article studies library assessment through a more focused lens. We will be following this agenda. First, we will examine the background of the research, followed by a description of what this entailed, including the main research questions, their methodology, findings, and conclusions. After this, we will discuss our critical viewpoints of the article, such as the significance of the results, alternative conclusions, and areas to explore in the future. And finally, we will wrap up with some potential questions for you to consider and discuss in the forums for this week. So next, we'll look at the research background. This case study takes place at Liberty University's Jerry Falwell Library in Virginia. Over the course of 13 months, 3 authors sought to study the process of creating a library assessment plan with the help of many of its librarians and support staff, with plans for future implementation. The goals of the library assessment plan included supporting the development of a culture of assessment, evaluating ongoing customer satisfaction and operational efficiency, and finally, proving the library's overall impact on its stakeholders. So much of the literature on library assessment focused on how a research-driven academic library could best assess themselves. The researchers in this article, however, wanted to explore how and what kind of an assessment plan would work in a teaching-driven institution rather than a research-based institution. The researchers also found that not many articles analyze the assessment planning process itself. This article focuses on their library's process of creating their library assessment plan. So next is their research questions. They wanted to answer 3 of them through their case study. First, how can an academic library effectively plan its assessment program? Second, how might the attributes of the library and its sponsoring institution influence the planning process? And third, how might the process of developing an assessment plan relate to building a culture of assessment within the library? Using qualitative methods, they gathered data through a variety of documents. For example, they analyzed anonymous planning participant surveys, meeting notes and agendas, education and training materials, and a milestone log. The planning participant survey contained 5 open-ended questions with 17 of the 36 potential participants responding. This totaled up to 46% response rate.
Okay, so now the findings and conclusions. From the findings, there were positive and negative evaluations during the assessment planning process, but it did provide insight that there is a suitable environment for organizational change. Participants understood that assessment planning is the product of internal and external factors. Internal factors were supported overall and included the pursuance of quality, efficiency, effectiveness, and decision support. External factors, however, received less support, and this included the demonstration of library quality and justification of library needs. Survey participants had mixed thoughts on the planning process. They appreciated the effort to include individuals from all levels of the organization and the opportunity to reflect on the assessments that were most appropriate and relatable to their department. However, they also thought that at times there is inadequate communication. To an extent, participants felt it was their responsibility to enact assessment plans, and they're concerned about the prevalence of assessment in their everyday work. It would take a lot of time, energy, and attention, so it is crucial to keep the assessments focused and relevant. But this, in effect, make participants worry about how much change there would be within the organizational culture. Therefore, the implementation of a plan remains a challenge. So the significance of the results. The research provides insight into the relationship between assessment planning and culture of assessment, and looks at the process of developing an assessment plan at a university library. Through the case study, it is clear that there are opportunities and challenges to developing a library assessment plan, and a culture of assessment can't be obtained easily. You do need strong support from the employees, especially when it is driven by internal factors like quality improvement, the pursuance of efficiency and effectiveness. Librarians surveyed were supportive of assessment planning and understood the value of it, but they are reluctant on the time and energy required of ongoing assessment.
So we have some alternative conclusions to consider. We thought it might be important to note that ongoing assessment culture may hinge on motivating librarians with internal factors like demonstrating and improving customer experience rather than external factors. It is also worth noting that researchers' direct participation in this study may have inadvertently biased it and affected its results. Therefore, the validity of the conclusions it makes is somewhat questionable. What may have been done differently? We think sample size of participants could have been larger in order to retrieve more accurate and potentially more varied results. As well, if the researchers had begun the case study at the beginning of the assessment process, the survey results may have been more reflective of the entire process rather than relying on the survey participants' reflections. And in order to have better success with implementing the assessment plan, researchers could have integrated some of the survey suggestions for improvement in the assessment plan. So, ideas for further research. Because this is a case study and qualitative in nature, its generalizability is limited. It looks at only one library of one university. Therefore, its findings cannot be generalized without further research. Other studies involving other universities' academic libraries may be useful to gain insight into the reality of assessment planning practices across multiple academic libraries, as well as to possibly further reinforce the study's research findings. The case study format utilized here allows for significant depth in the research of a qualitative nature. Such research is certainly beneficial in gaining insight into the assessment planning practices of a given institution. Therefore, replicating the above study in terms of format across a breadth of academic libraries across the country would allow for researchers to retain this level of depth as well as the qualitative quality of this study, while gaining a sense of the bigger picture and with the advantage of being able to note connections, similarities, and commonalities between libraries studied. In the future, researchers may study the process of implementing a library assessment program through multiple academic libraries and analyze the results as a whole. So, reflections. Considering all this, we have a few questions for you to consider. Do you think that external factors like improving library impact to stakeholders or internal factors like improving customer satisfaction should be the focus of library assessment plans? How effective do you think this particular library's assessment planning strategies were, and why? Respondents' feedback concerning this was mixed. Why do you think this is? What are some improvements you might propose? Do you think that there is a more effective way that this research could have been carried out? Do you have any other thoughts? We invite you to go to the OWL forums to answer one of these questions and participate in discussion. Thank you for listening to our presentation and have a great day.